So after I told this guy to take me off his joke list, honestly, if I wasn't under some type of spell, I wouldn't have been interested at all in pursuing anything with this person. When I recount this story, the things that kept me hooked were the metaphysical aspects, the hardcore synchronicities that I couldn't make up, he couldn't make up, they were just there. And then the emotional connection that I felt with this person, and the fact that I felt like he was with me every single day. Literally, for me, the energetic connection was like this. And in looking back on it, it was pretty hard to take. But this wasn't anything that was really foremost in my mind. So after I got the apartment, it was time to shift my focus to the job, which started the beginning or mid October of 2019. Now, I thought for sure that this job was going to work out. I'm going to do a little sidebar and then I'm going to bring it back to Mr. Catalyst. Um, it was at a level 1 trauma center here in Philadelphia. And level 1 is a high level of trauma for those of you that don't know. People that have had all types of accidents, strokes, brain injuries, very intense things. So I was going to be working in acute care and also occasionally acute rehab where people go to recover from these very serious injuries. And so this is interesting. I started the job and it didn't work out. They told me they did not think I was a good fit. Previous to this, I had worked in 10 hospitals, but this one did not work out. And I can't say they were wrong for rejecting me, to tell you the truth. There were a couple things I spoke up about that I didn't feel were right, but I could just tell that I was not going to fit in there. And sometimes in healthcare that happens. So despite impeccable references, despite me trying 100%, it did not work out. And at the time, I was disappointed. But as we know, October of 2019, we know what happened in the subsequent months around March of 2020. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that was a blessing that job did not work out. I just had no idea, what was coming in the next 6 months. And so sometimes when you go through these things and you think, oh my God, that was a pretty hard hit, I would say, to my ego. But I'm so glad that it happened. I'm so glad they told me, look, we don't think that you're a good fit. So that was tough. And then to bring in the positive aspects of it, there was a guy who was a yoga instructor in Sacramento who I didn't know well, but he had actually passed away in 2017. His name was Aaron Pappas. And I remember I did one Thai massage session with him, and he told me that he had gotten fired from his job, and he told me that it had actually been the best thing that had ever happened to him. And the reason why I mention this is when I was told to go home from that hospital in October of 2019, 2 years later. Now, this guy, I'm sorry, this might sound kind of woo, but I feel like it's important to include to show you that there were a variety of spiritual components that came into this situation to help me, okay? So I'm walking home to my new apartment, and once again, it was like, boom, this information came to me. And it wasn't in words, it was impression, and then I interpret it. So I'm going to interpret it here. And it was Aaron. And he came to me and he said, excuse me, sometimes when, sometimes when people that have passed on come to me, I have this reaction. Ooh, it's not because I'm sad, it's intense. And it's actually a very beautiful thing. So I'm walking home and I'm all dejected. And he said, he just said, this is the best thing that has ever happened to you. And I was like, wow. And he just came to me, and supported me in that moment like nobody else could, because the same thing had happened to him. Excuse me. So I just felt, wow, and it just kind of came to me out of the blue, it wasn't something like, oh, Aaron Pappas went through this, it wasn't anything like that. Like he wasn't even a thought in my mind, and it just came over me, just in a very calm manner. And I thought, yeah, I'm like, this doesn't feel good now, but I think it's going to work out okay. But I was very nervous at the time. And I remember it was a Friday when they said, look, just leave and don't come back, that I messaged Mr. Catalyst and I let him know this job did not work out. He was wrapping up work because he worked overnights at that time. And so it was probably like 11 o'clock in the morning. And he was wrapping up his work and I said, can you talk on the phone? And I remember he messaged me, I can't. And I just said, okay, I am a person that, fortunately, I'm used to digesting these disappointments on my own, and so I wasn't going to force him to talk on the phone if he didn't want to. Now, once again, had I not been drawn into the situation, I would have been like, oh, let me cut this guy loose, right? But the hook that drew me in is that I really wanted to meet up with him face to face. I was really, really curious because this was such a unique situation for me. I just said, I have to see this guy. I'm really curious. And since I'm going to call it under the spell, okay, I was accepting behavior that I usually would not ordinarily accept, and I freely admit that. And that's another reason why I'm telling this story, so that if you're going through something similar, you can start to break the programming too. And a lot of times I found it hard to find videos like this where people were actively breaking their programming. It's the hardest thing that you'll ever do because, of course, you want it to work out. Now, one of the things I did as I was driving across the country, in Bismarck, North Dakota, I saw a job pop up for the third time in a row. And this job was at one of my previous employers in Sacramento, where I worked for 3 different hospital systems. And I saw this job pop up, and I let it go once, I let it go twice, and then I specifically remember the day that I decided to apply for it. It was September 11th, 2019. I was in Bismarck, North Dakota, and I said, you know what, I'm not qualified for this job at all, but, let me apply for it. Why not, Because I had worked for that organization in California. And I applied, and when I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, about a week later, they had actually given me a call for the interview. And so when this job didn't work out, the possibility of securing this other job was on the table, but it was by no ways secure. Like, I wasn't necessarily qualified for it. I was definitely nervous. It was nerve-wracking to me to have this level 1 trauma center job not work out, and to wonder what was going to happen with this one. So when the level 1 trauma center job didn't work out, I had already had an interview for this full-time administrative job in informatics. And it was really a nursing position, but to be honest, I don't think any nurse at this particular hospital wanted it. And so they were willing to consider me and to train me. And long story short, I actually wound up getting the job, and it turned out to be a much better job than the level 1 trauma center job. It actually helped me transition out of working direct care as an occupational therapist with such high needs patients and into administration. I don't know if you remember like the old Tarzan movies where Tarzan would swing from branch to branch to branch. And then, you know, when you're swinging to the next branch, you've kind of let go of one, but then you haven't quite grasped a hold of another. That's the way I felt when this whole job situation was going on. The other thing I'll say is when all this was happening, like I wasn't processing all these events the way I'm talking to you now. It was just happening so quick. I was just like, okay. And it was just on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. So I want to make it clear that I wasn't sitting here in my apartment ruminating over these things. I was like, okay, that didn't work out. Well, oh, Mr. Catalyst doesn't want to talk to me? All right, well, I guess I'll just have to deal with this myself. And I want to make it clear that I totally understand that a lot of Americans deal with these situations, and they have to deal with it on their own, unless you have someone that you can really trust that actually cares about you.